A very good morning to all from Professor A.G. Iyer. I'm the president of the Renewable Energy Promotion Association and as well as the NITI Foundation. Two bodies that were born, one in 2011, then in 2012. And they came out of the entire initiative in publishing in 2007 that I started, called the NITI Journal. And parallelly, I had also launched the Economic Journal at the time and came into the publishing industry. And before that, I want to take you to a position, which is very important for me, which was circa 2005. Today I'm going to discuss what happened in that year of 2005, when I had not begun all these things. I had just come out of my, work with the MNB&W Diesel India. I was the head of MNB&W in India, and we did a record 4,000 megawatt of captive power, which was much bigger than what China did at the time. And our competitors were Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä also did a capacity of roughly 2,500 to 3,000. So it was a very big traction in India. And of course, the India office of ours, I was the head of the entire Southeast Asia for MN Diesel. Now this company is called MNES. So that was my background. And that very period when I was doing this was the year 96, 97, that I joined this company as WMI Power, as a subsidiary of WMI Cranes Limited. And a separate company was born called WMI Power, which was finally the joint venture was brought in by me. As the head of the country, I converted it into MNB&W India with foreign direct investment from MAN Diesel, Germany, MN Diesel, Germany. Later on, it became MAN Diesel and Turbo. And subsequently, after the takeover by Volkswagen, now the new name for the company is MAN ES, MAN-ES. MAN is a leading company because the name comes out of Machine and Fabric, Augsburg, Nuremberg, the two factories, and is originally founded by the inventor of the diesel engine called Rudolf Diesel. And there is a very interesting issue about Rudolf Diesel, which I must exchange here. Diesel, unfortunately, was actually a victim of, the Nazi, situation in Germany, and he lost his life on the high seas. It said that he was literally shot in the high seas. And after that, what we did is basically, Rudolf was gone, but basically, MAN as a factory, that is Machine and Fabric, Augsburg, Nuremberg, incidentally remained as a company, as a production facility and all that, starting from the single piston cylinder engine that Rudolf invented. So Rudolf's invention was great. I'm not getting into the timelines, but Rudolf's invention was great for the simple reason, this must be explained to the common public, and I'm giving this to you, that Rudolf did not use the fuel diesel. Diesel name for the fuel had nothing to do with itself. It was named after Rudolf by basically the Americans and the British who stuck oil in the Middle East. But actually what Rudolf did was amazing. Rudolf delivered power, which could be used in propulsion or for power generation. He produced literally electricity in a simulation experiment using biofuel, vegetable oil. He fired his single piston cylinder engine, the invention, with vegetable oil. And that is what has been hidden from the world, because it was much easier that that capacity, the diesel engine was already working on a certain cycle. And what the Americans and the British and the others found was it could easily produce power using the fuel that they discovered in the Middle East. They did the refining of the crude, and through the throughput refining, they got this fuel and they named it after diesel. And that's why they call diesel. And the biggest irony of the situation is Rudolf used a biofuel, which is a renewable fuel. But what the world did is they used diesel, which is today named diesel after him. But actually, it is a misnomer because it's almost a disrespect to Rudolf Diesel, because he was a renewable man and he showed IC engines to operate with renewable energy. He demonstrated it in those days. But what we did is the whole world went for this carbon fuel and powered the engines with carbon. And now as we understand diesel as a carbon fuel, and its name is carbon, and the other, it's full with carbon, and the other thing we know is powering with diesel is what we understand with fuel named after him. So again, I repeat, the irony is Rudolf did not use diesel fuel. Rudolf was very clear that he used vegetable oil to power his single piston cylinder engine and demonstrate the reciprocating engine called the diesel engine. So the diesel engine is different from the diesel fuel. We must remember this. So coming to that, now we are coming to an age, very interesting age, where we are looking at, probably we will see this very diesel engine which he invented being powered finally using natural gas, and also we could be powering with other sources like hydrogen in the future. That's what we are seeing, and we need to look at all these kind of developments in the coming days. And I would say that India needs to watch this whole thing, that and go and understand that history. And I want to dedicate definitely my talk today also to Rudolf Diesel, because I was lucky to work in the company and understand history of diesel and what it did for the world, and how it has been misconstrued and wrongly used. His name, the word diesel, is not the fuel. The word diesel stands for Rudolf Diesel, my friends, the great inventor of the diesel. Just like in GE is a company born out of the inventor Edison, who invented the bulb. So incandescent lamp, or the bulb that he invented, basically the same way. This is a far bigger invention, the diesel engine. It is propelling everything in the world. That is, propulsion is for automotives. Its propulsion goes towards ships, and even the Hindenburg experiment, which only failed because of a blunder at the time of the airship, because the airship body was mostly wood, and then people were allowed to drink and smoke within the airship, and that's why the inflammable hydrogen reciprocating engines caught fire, because they had hydrogen, and hydrogen caught fire. That's why the airship failed. Otherwise, the airship was a success, because if we had all the protocols of not allowing liquor, not allowing fire inside, and things like that, I would say the whole principle of the same diesel engine would have got into powering airship with hydrogen. So this is called hydrogen direct combustion systems. So we may come back to that, and these experiments are going on. We may not need a fuel cell to do all this business. That is, using a fuel cell to deliver through a reformer and then running the batteries. That system may not come. We may see a direct combustion technology coming through the IC engines itself, because it is not something new. It was done by Rudolf himself using vegetable oil. So from biodiesel, we can go to bio-CNG or compressed biogas. We can use any form of this, and also power it with hydrogen. So this is going to be one area which is very important. So I come to you today to explain my book called Powering in Crisis, where we have first touched all the things. This was the year 2005, my friends. Powering in Crisis, this is the book, and my co-author was my late brother, A. Prakash Iyer. And this book byline is A Strategic Direction for India's Energy Security, Energy Sustainability, and Power Access for All by 2022. Future of Energy India for Vision 2032. That was the book. And I first wrote this book in the year 2005, released it at the hands of then Deputy or Vice Chairman of the Planning Commission, none other than Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, 2005. And in fact, the man who joined him on the dais when this book release happened in Mumbai was another great guy. He was the then Secretary of the US Department of Energy, and his name is Dr. Miles Greenbaum. So it was Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia and Miles Greenbaum who released the book. And the book that I showed you, which is a 2015 version, the second operated edition, although now I have the fourth edition on the anvil, because we have a digital edition which is updated in 2017. But this edition that you are seeing these photos across, and with the great former NHPC chairman Yogiprasad at the center, and also my mentor Santosh Goenka in the picture, just besides Murugesan. We can see Mr. Popley, we can see all big guys, we can see Dr. V.K. Garg, and this type of a crowd that released it. And we see P.K. Agarwal, my friend from BHL, Hetal Mehta, just besides me. On the left, I'm on the extreme far left. And then we see next Hetal Mehta with me, and all these stalwarts of the industry were there. It was released in Delhi. And this basically was somewhere, I think, in the month of April. I think it must be month of either April or June, when it was released. And this was the edition that I was showing. It was 30th April 2015 that was released in Delhi. And I can see it's a Royal Plaza hotel. I can see the background and the hall. It was at the Royal Plaza. It was released. And on the backdrop of the third India Power and Energy Conclave, 2015. We are on the verge of doing the seventh conclave. Seventh India Power and Energy Conclave will be conducted or done virtually on the 2nd of December 2021. So exactly 6 years ago, that was the picture of the publication of the book. But this book was first published in 2005. 2005 when I had not started publishing. And that time it was the US, the Secretary US Department of Energy, Mr. Miles Greenbaum was there, and Dr. Montek, the Vice Chairman of the then Planning Commission, was on the dais, and they were the ones who released my book, PoweringinCrisis. And the best part I told you about this book, this is Dr. Montek Singh famously said, Professor, I was waiting for someone to give us a direction for India's power sector, and I'm very happy that you have done it. And this happened because I met him before that. And he had mentioned that in his personal meeting, that somebody from who can have a rounded view and understands the power sector well should present them a concise format, what way they should go forward. So this book was purely done to give a direction to India's power sector. And then later on in the year 2009, I also released the parallel report to integrated energy policy. In fact, a kind of a counter and also a kind of a corrective course that we should not do everything with million tons of oil equivalent, but look at the megawatt hours and power availability and drive the whole economy using the electricity factor rather than or the propulsion using renewable and other alternative things. That was my idea, and that idea has come full circle today. Today is the time when it's come full circle that we are going more renewable. And what happened at COP26, the dilemma that no country was committing. Like we were completely, I would say we're not completely on course when we committed that it is 2070. India has only 202 gigawatt of thermal coal power. China has almost 850 to 1000 gigawatt, 5 to 6 times of ours. America has almost, let us say, the capacity index is much larger for America because than India also, because America has about 352 gigawatt of thermal coal power. So all these countries are ahead of us. So what was the need for us to commit such a conservative 2070? Whereas the entire meeting at COP26 was to ensure that nobody goes beyond the timeline of 2050. So the only country among the main people, that is America, China and India, which are under discussion, the only country that committed 2050 was America, US, because Joe Biden, the president of US, committed 2050 as a net zero timeline, whereas we chose 2070 as net zero timeline, and China chose the period of 2060. So both China and India have not done justice. India surely has not done justice to itself, because we have so much of renewable coming in that we would be actually reaching that whole thing by even 2040. But conservatively, I would say we could have easily committed 2045 or 47. 47, fine. Looking at the 5 years tendency of our plans, whether it's NITI Aayog or formerly Planning Commission, we're going by the 5-year revised analysis. So 2047 is the timeline. So I could never understand why India committed 2030. That was a blunder. So taking it forward, I want to tell you that we can do it. And I want to tell you that hydro will be a major issue as well. We have to revive our hydropower. We have come down to 10% of power generation mix for hydro, which is not sustainable. During Vajpayee's time, Atalji's time, we had 27.1% in the year 2003-2004. So therefore, I want to put some very interesting. I talked of Rudolf Diesel right away, and I explained to you. I also want to tell you that the great minister that India had, who thought hydro can be done, was none other than P.R. Kumaramangalam and the great Yogiprasad, then chairman of the NHPC and longest serving one. His timeline almost is the timeline of his holding the chairmanship of NHPC, and also parallelly he held the chairmanship of Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam Limited, was then chairman of SJVN also in that period. Between Vajpayee's period and his period, the big initiative of 50 gigawatt hydro was taken, and I will never forget what he did for the country. And the great thing is, the new book has got this, as you see, P.R. Kumaramangam on the left, Vajpayee ji on the right. But on top, there is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And that's what I want to tell you. What I want to explain to you is the genius of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And I'm just reading it out from the earlier edition. This is the 2017 digital one. I'm reading from the 2015 edition, almost the same. This is very important for all to know. India's water policy and electricity power planning. This is the heading that I've given on the back cover of the book. The policy formulation and planning for development of irrigation and electric power was the major concern. It was during Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's time, and this is a pre-freedom era. It was the labor development under the guidance of Dr. Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar who decided to establish the Central Technical Power Board, CTPB, for power system development, hydropower station sites, hydroelectric surveys, analyzing problems of electricity generation, and thermal power station investigation. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar emphasized on the significance and need for the grid system. So again, see, the man who first thought about the grid was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So we all know him as a lawyer and as an eminent architect of the Indian Constitution and all, but we barely know that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was the greatest economist India produced. He wrote 2 theses on the problem of the rupee. One at the Columbia University, US, and before that was the London School of Economics. So his entire thesis was the problem of the rupee. That is not my discussion today, because that will go towards how to do a demonetization, and how not to do is what we are learning now. But I'm not getting into that subject. Most important thing is I wanted to tell you that he was an economist. By training, he was an economist. He also studied law, but he had a very big scientific temper inside him, and that scientific temper came right here when he pushed for hydropower in India, right before freedom days. Dr. Babasaheb emphasized the significance and need for grid system, which is still working successfully even today. And remember, the national grid was not there in 1978 and to that 80 period, because it was none other than Shri Yogiprasad ji, who was brought in under deputation in the year 1978 from the Bihar State Electricity Board to lead the NHPC for building a grid evacuation to bring 336 megawatt of Chukha hydroelectric power from Bhutan, which was the first hydroelectric plant in Bhutan built by India, to bring that electricity through the chicken neck, in spite of the Naxalite and terror zone that it had, and also China's own this thing across Sikkim, chicken neck, Chumbi Valley, and all come through Sikkim. So through that, the grid was brought into the great feat, with all the issues of security and everything. And that's been operating. We have been importing power from Bhutan for so many years, and Chukha was the first power plant. In fact, Prasad was brought in under deputation to head making the grid system. And the man who helped him was none other than ABA Ghani Khan Chaudhary, that member of parliament from Malda, a legend, who actually enabled the budget for this. Because there was no budget. So it was a parliamentary member of parliament pushed the budget of roughly 50 to 60 crores available to Prasad, so that he could, with that NHPC, when he was then literally the senior most engineer, brought under deputation to construct the cross-border grid between Bhutan and India and give the birth to the South Asian region grid. That was Yogiprasad, and he has not been, I think, recognized in the way he should be. He was the father of not only India's hydropower, but probably he should also be considered as the father of India's grid system, because finally, I would say, basically, the great grandfather of the grid system was none other than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and the father was Yogiprasad. And a great help he got from P.R. Kumaramangam at the time to understand the grid can only sustain because of hydropower. He could see both the subject together. So that's why he could understand the subject of frequency management and stability of the grid. So I further read what I wrote in the book on Babasaheb Ambedkar and what he said. It's today's, he said, in those days, literally 40s, if today power engineers are going abroad for training, and the credit goes to, this is very clear statement I'm making, if today power engineers are going for training, the credit must go to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar again. He was a great leader of the labor department. Still the British controlling us, but he was the leader for the labor department. He formulated the policy to train the best engineer overseas, and he got the British to fund this. That is very important. It is a matter of shame that nobody credits Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar for the role he played in India's water policy and electric power planning. Today, the impasse in the hydropower share is owing to willful ignorance and almost criminal neglect of the hydropower and water resources development. So these were my tough words, and I sustained those words from 2017, 2015, and we must go back to bring the grid, share of hydropower to 20 to 25% minimum, and rather ideally 27.1%, which was during Vajpayee's time, when Prasad was literally the advisor to the 50 gigawatt initiative that he brought up, and also networking of the river and river interlinking project, we call it like the Golden Quadrilateral. It could be the greatest project. So we must go there, and we must, on a war footing, go back to bringing hydropower in a very, very big way. As we are still succeeding in solar, we need to do a lot and all of that. I want to give you some little feed from the chapter first, which is power sector overview and energy mix when I wrote. But then from today's time, India has 389 gigawatt of installed capacity. But what we use is roughly 175 gigawatt. The maximum peak we reached was evacuation was 200 gigawatt recently. In the 200 gigawatt, when it was 2015 roughly, in my book I wrote that the shortfall by 2022 would be in the region of 2 lakh megawatt. That means 200 gigawatt of shortfall, and that's exactly what is happening. So we already reached the shortfall by not doing enough, right? We can say, okay, we are delivering 25 gigawatt every year, but that was already done in the year 2013-14 when Yogiprasad Singh now is gone from the Congress to the BJP, but that time the power minister was Yogiprasad Singh. During his tenure, when P.K. Sinha was the Secretary Power, later on he went on to become the Cabinet Secretary, and I had interviewed him when he was the Secretary Power. That is the first year we brought 22 to 25 gigawatt into the grid, and he was the first Power Secretary who could actually catch hold of the low-hanging fruit and get the power supplies into the grid in quick time, in almost like a calendar year. So, but then just we have sustained that. We have not incremented it. We needed to add about 40 gigawatt to 50 gigawatt into the grid every year. Instead, we have been only adding that 22, 25, 26, and then we have been patting our back that we've done great job. No, it was already shown that we could do the 22 to 25 gigawatt. Already shown by P.K. Sinha in the year 2014 itself. So what was the need for us to continue 7 years down the line? We have not increased the per year capacity addition by any substantial measures. And that is my criticism. So you can't just come to a level and just keep doing that. There must be some substantial growth. The growth cannot be 3 to 5%, because if you grow in the power sector by 5%, you will not grow the economy by more than 2%. The power sector, for the economy to grow 8%, the development in the power sector must be double, 10 to 15%. So ideally, even if you want to keep the economic growth the same level of 7 to 8%, you must go to 12 to 15% range for power sector growth. And that's what we have neglected, because the power sector is the core driving sector for every other sector. And then there we are going to see carbon footprint coming down using renewable energy. So that is the strategy that we need to follow. So today, a simple benchmark like Maharashtra has got 43.4 gigawatt of installed capacity right now, which translates, if you consider 65% as the efficiency of conversion, which we sometimes call PLF, but basically the efficiency of conversion of this, or usability or utilization, 65%. We are almost coming to a 2,100 units per capita availability of electricity. The national average for per capita right now, it is loitering around 1,200 to 1,300 kilowatt hour per capita per person per annum. So that is almost like 1,200 to 1,300 units. So Maharashtra is above the per capita. It's 2,100 units availability to citizens who are living in the state of Maharashtra. Indian citizens in Maharashtra get more power availability than citizens in Bihar, for example. Citizens in Bihar are almost accessing only 400 units per capita, because the installed capacity for a 10.8 crore population or 108 million. Maharashtra is 12 crore population, 120 million. And we have access to 43.4 gigawatt. Bihar has access to 6,738 megawatt, which is 6.7 gigawatt, instead of 44.3 gigawatt, 43 gigawatt. So you can imagine 7 times access to citizens staying in Maharashtra compared to citizens staying in Bihar. And that is a simple ideology why Bihar is unable to contribute substantially to the Indian economy. Maharashtra's GDP is in the region of $450 billion US. And Bihar's state gross development product or SGDP is just very, very less. It is in the region of about 50 billion. There's 40 to 50 billion US dollar, not more than that. And if we want to progress, we have to ensure that Bihar is able to, the 10.8 crore people of Bihar contribute more to the economy. The rural economy is saving Bihar, but basically we can't continue with the rural base. The employment in the rural is coming down with share of land and coming down, and then therefore the urbanization and employment, government cannot give the employment. You need to encourage the private participation, the PPP mode. So this all cannot happen without making electricity access available to common citizen and to the economy of Bihar. So with 6,738 megawatt, we cannot develop Bihar. So Bihar is in a pathetic state because nobody did anything. And these 7 years also were very pathetic. It was nothing was done for Bihar's electricity. So per capita access of 400, 500 units for the citizens of Bihar, citizens of India living in Bihar, versus 2,100 units of electricity per capita access to the citizens living in Maharashtra, tells you clearly why states have to focus on power sector in a very big way. That was a simple thing. I want both Maharashtra, Bihar, UP, everything to grow. But yes, Maharashtra shows the way. Gujarat shows the way, even better sometimes on the electricity side. No doubt about it. Because they have greater access to power supply in Gujarat. But still, the balance that Maharashtra creates between agriculture growth and urban growth is the most important thing we have to learn. So it's an ideal state with a $450 billion GDP. So I would benchmark Maharashtra because it is effectively using the capacity available to it to catapult itself to the top state. The number 2 state is Tamil Nadu with 290 billion. Recently, some messages have come. Uttar Pradesh has crossed the capacity index or ability to actually power the economy. They have crossed, Tamil Nadu. I'm saying this is a complete myth. Tamil Nadu is 290 billion. Uttar Pradesh is roughly 260 billion US dollar of GDP and with a 25 crore population. And it has access also is pathetic because it's only 15 to 16 gigawatt of electricity access in Uttar Pradesh. So it can go to 18 gigawatt, but that is not correct, because if Maharashtra has something like 45 gigawatt, and I say Maharashtra also has the 3,000 megawatt of shortfall, and we have 43.4 gigawatt, which is 43,400 megawatt of capacity access to itself, and it utilizes 65% level of it. It's a very efficient utilization, produces a $450 billion GDP. You can imagine what we can do. We can reach 1 trillion in no time if we double this power generation capacity. That's so Maharashtra can not only double, it could be actually more than 2.5 times the GDP we can produce. With 1 trillion plus GDP, first state will be Maharashtra. That is my prediction, because they are already on the track to do it. Uddhav Thackeray is definitely leading the state very well, and as a chief minister. So, and his focus is there on infrastructure and all these developments. So I'm very sure that Maharashtra will show the way to the other states. And I would be very happy if UP also comes up. But UP, if it has to come up, it has to correct the anomaly in the power sector. It cannot be at 15 gigawatt. A minimum capacity of 30 to 35 gigawatt is required to make UP a powerful economy contributing to India with a 25 crore population. All the employment, deployment, everything depends on this issue. So this is what I want to say. And Bihar's situation is very pathetic, and we must focus on Bihar, from where the great son of Bihar, Yogiprasad, came. And he fought for the state, fought for the merit of the state, came and did a lot of things, built a great company called NHPC Limited, which is National Hydropower Corporation. It is the flagship and mother company of hydropower development in India and also renewable development. And I tell you, together with NTPC and NHPC, this country can do wonders. But I want also the Mahagencos to be recognized. In fact, the second biggest utility in this country after NTPC in terms of individual capacity is Mahagenco. We must never forget it. And of course, the third will be NHPC, because it's hydro assets of 7 gigawatt and now building assets of renewable energy itself will give it a third position. So it's a state utility, power generation utility, Mahagenco, which is the second biggest utility, far below NTPC. NTPC is reaching 60 gigawatt of total installed capacity share. But yes, as a government utility or as any utility, the number 2 utility is Mahagenco, because it has phenomenal access, almost 14 gigawatt of its own capacity. Of course, the entire energy access brings the public-private participation, and also the central share of Maharashtra becomes 43.4 gigawatt. all this as a background, I want to tell you that let us focus on the power sector. Let us focus on powering in crisis and make this country a great country. And my prediction for 2022 that we will be having reasonable power access for the citizen must be achieved in the 75th year or the diamond jubilee of India's freedom. Thank you. Namaskar and Jai Hind. See you again in another show.